Hi YouTube, it's your Elden Ring PvP scrub sensei, Saint Riot, and I've made a new build. This is Brady Blum, and if you get the reference, you get bonus points. You can just Google it and then try and piece it together. We're using Deathrite Bird stuff, Ghost Flame stuff. We've got 40 intelligence, 19 strength, 20 dex. We are using Star Scourge Talisman, 5 extra strength. Prosthesis Wearer Talisman, 5 extra dex. 40 intelligence. Now, I want you to know that I tried to use Explosive Ghost Flame on this build. It's a lot of fun. But the stat requirements on it stretch this build so thin that I was forced to wear a Scar Seal Talisman to pull it off. And when I started invading, the damage that I was taking was absolutely absurd. And so I said, okay, enough of that. And I decided to ditch it. I ditched the faith. It is like 30 faith to rock Explosive Ghost Flame. So I had 15 faith, the 2 Fingers Talisman, and the Faith Knot tier in my Wondrous Physic. So that when I drank my Wondrous Physic, I was up to 30 faith, so I could use Ghost Flame Explosion. And this build was spread thin. Not only was it spread thin, it was taking so much damage. There are people who say, like, yeah, the Scar Seals are fine, you know, at lower levels. This is at level 80, mind you. The Moon Veils were just absolutely annihilating me. So I switched it, got rid of the Faith, went pure Strength Dex Int, and I got rid of Explosive Ghost Flame, the spell, and I put the Death's Poker on the build. And now I have Explosive Ghost Flame, as well as Spirit Call Ritual, as well as the Greatsword. I would use the Death Poker more. I like that weapon. I think it's great. It's got really fun heavy attacks, and it's got really cool Ashes of War. I have no problem with that weapon. But when I made this build, I made it with the intention of using the other Greatsword, the one with the Ghost Flame buff. It reminds me very much of the Onyx Blade from Dark Souls 3, because they're basically the same thing. I can't remember what it's called right now, but at some point, Helphen Steeple, that's it. If Death's Poker was anything other than a Greatsword, I would be all over that thing. But I made this build to use the Steeple. And so I don't want to just use 2 Greatswords, you know what I mean? And yeah, so I basically just use it as a Ash of War stick. We've gotten into the invasions now. You've watched enough PvE, you know. The Spear Call Ritual on the Deathrite Spear is so cool and so good. And the spear itself is not bad. It has a 110 crit modifier, which I've not seen anybody talk about. Which isn't great, but like it's better than, you know, anything else on this build. So yeah, that's just a nice bonus. And it also has the Partisan R2s, which I really like. They're swings instead of pokes. We've got the Eclipse Shield, the medium Eclipse Shield on this build, because the lore. Like, that R2 is so cool. I love those R2s. They're great. I don't have anything against this weapon at all. People see me not using it very much, and I think it's not that I don't know. I know it's cool. If it were anything other than a Greatsword, I would use the hell out of it. It's just that this build was made to be a Greatsword build. Right there, you might have noticed that that's not a true combo. The Ash of War into the light attack. In Dark Souls 3, that's a true combo. In Dark Souls 3, actually, you could press R1 and do the weapon skill, and then press R1 again, and it was all a true combo. It was pretty good, and unfortunately, none of it is a true combo in Elden Ring, which I can kind of understand because of the way damage just comes out and how you can buff continuous damage like that. So a true combo like that in Elden Ring could potentially just be, you know, murderous. So I understand why it's not a true combo, but I do miss it. However, they recently just buffed this weapon, the Steeple, and it is pretty good. It does very good damage, especially with its buff. And this is one of those buffs that works better at lower levels because it's a flat buff. I'm pretty sure, I might just be talking out of my butt, but I'm pretty sure that it is a flat buff, meaning no matter what your stats are, it buffs the weapon the same amount. And in cases like that, you're always better off, you know, when you're at lower level, because at lower level your opponent's defenses are lower, and so that buff means more because it's the same. $100 is $100, right? But if you're poor, if you have nothing, $100 is a lot. If you have $50,000, $100 is not a lot. It's just, you know. So 100 extra AR on a weapon at low levels is significant. At higher levels, it's less significant, especially as defenses increase and those split defenses increase as well, right? Hyper armor has been reworked. This build doesn't have a lot of poise. I'm at like 51 poise, and you're gonna watch me in the course of this video. I'll hyper armor through a ton of stuff with a greatsword, and that's great. No pun intended. Everyone is, oh, you have to have 81 poise. Well, I mean, not really. I've got 51 and I'm able to hyper armor through like one-handed everythings. I just hyper armored through a one-handed heavy thrusting sword. I can hyper armor through a one-handed katana, straight sword, curved sword, whatever. And that's on an R1. I have that hyper armor. On an R2, I have more hyper armor than that, I'm pretty sure. There will be more testing and everything. I literally just started doing PvP with this build. Today is like the first day I've like actually done, like sat down and done a bunch of invasions with the build. So I still have some stuff to learn. But right away, I noticed the hyper armor R1s and R2s definitely feel like they mean more than having 81 poise. I mean, you can aim for 81 poise or 101 poise, whatever you want, if you're not using a weapon with hyper armor. But yeah, I just don't see the point. I've considered putting the Bullgoat's Talisman on this build, but I really like having the Strength and the Dex Talismans, because that's 10 extra stats, and the Strength stats help my greatsword damage, and the extra Dex helps the spear damage. And that's kind of nice, even when it's unbuffed. The sword is not bad. The sword has good intelligence scaling, even if it's not buffed. So it's not like some weapons where it only, for example, McKellen Knight Sword, its faith scaling sucks. It's only worth anything when you buff the sword. This weapon is not like that. That intelligence scaling helps right off the bat. The spear is the same way, but the spear has worse intelligence scaling. It's mainly a dex weapon with decent strength and intelligence scaling to boost. I love this spear. I'll have more invasions with this build, but that's just a simple rundown. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Later, y'all.